Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm seeing everyone starting to come in. Good. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited that everyone could attend. Before we get started, we do have a Q&A. If you have any questions, you can put them in our Q&A box or our chat. And yeah, I would like to introduce, we have our program director here, Lindsay, for Resounding Joy and Music Works. And Lindsay, I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm so excited that you're here. And if you'd like to go ahead and just put in the chat your name and, oh, hello from Pittsburgh. Hi, Valerie from Pittsburgh. Your name and where you're from so that I can say hi to you, and then that way I can address you if you have questions. And I'm thrilled to be sharing information about our first responder program. It is a program that's been very near and dear to my heart, and something that I think that the music therapy community really can benefit our communities throughout the country and throughout the world. So I'm so excited that you're here to learn about this program and joining me today. The first thing we're going to do is let everything else kind of go. We're all in this crazy world together, and there's a lot going on. Hi, everybody. Hello, Orange County, and hello. Let's see, we got New York. Hi, thanks for joining us. First thing we're going to do to get started is just a real quick mindfulness exercise. So find a comfortable seat and take a moment to just close your eyes. Maybe this is the first time today that you're getting an opportunity to breathe, to really focus on your breath. Try to make each inhale and exhale just a little bit deeper than the one before. And in this moment, know that you are exactly where you're meant to be. There's nowhere to run off to, nothing else to do. To be here with your fellow music therapists and breathe. On your next exhale, open your mouth, take a big audible sigh out. And together we'll take a deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. Deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. Out for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Out for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep breath in. Out for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. And a big audible sigh out. One more breath in. And let it all go. Thank you all so much for starting out with me as we begin today that way. I always start out these groups with first responders with breath and with breathing, and thought it was a great way for us to start our time together today. So a little bit about our organizations that we'll be talking about today. This program is through Resounding Joy. Resounding Joy is a San Diego not-for-profit. We were started in 2004 by Dr. Barbara Royer, and our mission is to enhance the human experience through therapeutic use of music. 2 years ago, in 2018, the Iverson Foundation for Active Awareness was started, another San Diego not-for-profit. And we learned about Iverson Foundation when Ashley Iverson was interviewed on the news. We saw her interviewed when she started her organization. And Ashley started Iverson Foundation after her husband, Cory, who was a firefighter, was killed in the Thomas Fire in Ventura County in 2017. And their mission is to raise awareness of the mental and emotional state within first responders, to help remove the stigma that tells them they are unfit for the job if they are not mentally sound, and to shift the culture, encouraging them to be proactive within the workplace and actively work to improve their mental and emotional health. When we first reached out to Ashley, it took over almost a year for us to actually get in touch with her and to offer music therapy as a way that her organization could really be connecting with the first responder community. After that year, though, Ashley called back, and it just is a really good example of perseverance and resiliency in and of itself that we kept reaching out. She finally was able to reach out back to us, and we were able to start our first program last year. And this is a picture of our first group. We started with two pilot groups, one in Jamul, California, which is just east of San Diego, and one in Escondido, California, which is just north and east of San Diego. Both Jamul and Escondido are high fire risk areas. They are out in rural areas with a lot of vegetation, very dry areas. So we started in these areas because this is the areas that these firefighters are going to be seeing the most action in San Diego County. Couple testimonials from our first group that we had. Before this class, I was using music as a response to the stressors after they happened. Now I'm trying to use music before instead of an afterthought to get me in the right headspace, to be more productive or proactive instead of reactive. Exactly one of the things we were trying to do. I'm trying to pass this on to my kids. I used to be really a negative person, and I realized it was affecting the tone of my whole family. And then this third one, I used to go home from work feeling grumpy and irritated. I'd yell at my kid for dropping a cup or whatever, and I know my wife felt the stress too. I would rather be at work than at home, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting my family. These types of comments are the comments that we've had from the people that have experienced these groups, that the stressors that they feel and the burnout that they feel in their jobs, in their everyday life, carries over into home. And when we first reached out to Iverson Foundation, we did so because firefighters die at a much higher rate by suicide than by any other cause. And so we wanted to look at why isn't the mental health of our first responders a high priority, and what can we do as music therapists to address the mental health of the first responders in our community. And because this started in San Diego, we started with our firefighter population because they're very busy here in San Diego. Hopefully in the future, we will be reaching out to other first responders, nurses, paramedics. We have our police force, all of these things we hope to be reaching out. And we have a question from Valerie. What ways do you keep persevering to reach out that are persistent but not defensive or annoying or seen as burdensome? It's a great question. So the way that we reached out to the Iverson Foundation was actually through our board members. So we are very fortunate as a not-for-profit to have a very active and very wonderful board. And our board of directors is who actually found the Iverson Foundation and reached out to them. When they reached out to them, Ashley responded at first that they were interested, but it wasn't time. So we set different reminders throughout the year and contacted every other month. Just to reach out. And every time that I reach out as a program director to different organizations, if I don't get communication back, I always reach back out a couple months or a month later. And I always approach it from the viewpoint of how can we be supporting you? How can Resounding Joy be supporting you and your mission right now? Instead of how can we collaborate or what can we do together or we'd love to start something, it's always how can we support you? And so far that has been really successful for us, just using that word support. And in this case, it turned out very successfully. So here's the breakdown of our very first two groups. Again, Hamul and then up in Escondido. Our age range was anywhere from 23 to 56, with the average age being 35. We had 57 male participants and 4 female participants. And then you can see the breakdown at the bottom of ethnicity and race as reported by our participants. Our original protocol consisted of a 6-week series with 90-minute classes each week. So these classes met once a week in the fire stations, and we brought all of the materials and equipment to them. So it was a lot of schlepping drums, but music therapists were used to this, and this is almost our workout that we get, right? So it was taking them to the fire stations, setting everything up there, and doing this in their own space. And we did that very intentionally so that they could be in their space where they're experiencing a lot of their stress and anxiety, and we can address that in that space. Instead of them being at home where they might feel less stress already, we wanted to address it in the workspace. Our main goal was to provide an array of accessible, music-centered mindfulness experiences. And we wanted to address all of these things that we see as a huge issue and challenge for people in the first responder community. These include, but are not limited to, stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD, insomnia, isolation, burnout, and then all of these things ultimately contribute to that high suicide rate. So that's really what we were looking at for this. We created an objective checklist, and I'm not going to read all of these out loud. You can see them in the PowerPoint when it's shared with you too. But I wanted to point this out because this is something I've learned about the first responder community, being very involved with them now for about a year. And it's something that Ashley and other first responders requested. They requested a checklist of objectives. And it's partially because of their work environment and the way that they have to check off everything. They have their daily checks of the fire engine and their equipment and their uniform, everything. So they are very regimented in that way. So we wanted to have an objective checklist that reflected that, and also to let them know that we can make this be very indicative of what they're already used to in their jobs. So we wanted to give them this checklist up front, and it ended up being very successful for them in a way that they could look through and keep us honest as well, make sure we're hitting all those objectives, and ended up being a great tool for us with data collection later on. So some of the main points of these is, our objective is not just that they're practicing these at the fire station, but they're practicing these at home, that they're practicing these on their own and not just in front of a music therapist in a group, that they're bonding, that we're approaching and looking at all of those, the stress and anxiety, depression, insomnia, and isolation. The course exercises stayed pretty much the same throughout the course. Every course began with drumming. So every time that I got there, I set everything up. I would start drumming, and that's almost how they knew that it was time to start. The people that we worked with, we did schedule these sessions to be during their shift change so that the people would come right on and come into the group. But we did have some people who would stay overnight at the firehouse that would come right from their bunks to our groups as well. And we had people who even started to come on their days off into the fire station to attend these groups. So we'd always start with drumming. It was our call to action, our call to get people to come into the room. The first 5 minutes was just free drumming. And after that, we would bring everyone into a grounded and very secure space with the breathing exercise. So letting them know that, exactly like what I did with you today, that we are safe right now. There's nowhere else to run off to, nothing else to focus on, just your breath. And to figure out a way in a space where you can give yourself that permission to have those moments. We also always had a mindfulness exercise, so that might be progressive muscle relaxation, it might be guided imagery, different things that we would do with them to help them relax. And then after that, we'd have the discussion and processing. This included verbal and nonverbal processing. Some of the nonverbal processing we did were group mandalas, which actually ended up being a really cool thing. We would process through drums, process through singing, and then a lot of discussion happened in this group too. A lot of people finally feeling ready and able to open up in front of their peers and discuss some of these very difficult topics, and it does have a culture, as the Iverson Foundation has mentioned in their mission statement. There is a culture in first responders, and right now it is difficult for a lot of first responders to reach out and get the help that they need because of the stigma of mental health in their field. So we were really looking at how can we help one another? How can I encourage one another? How do we know when a friend needs help? These types of things are what we discussed and processed in those times. We also did some songwriting. There were group chants that were created, different things to help us focus on gratitude and positivity in the class. And then the main thing that we created, the thing that we left behind after we finished our 6 weeks together, was our playlists. So each week we would work on a different playlist that for a different purpose. So maybe it's our pump up music. We need to get outside and get ready to exercise for the day. So they would have their pump up playlist that they'd create together. Or I need to relax, or I'm feeling really angry today and I just have got to let it out somehow. And that is just a really angry playlist. And as all of you know, this is us hitting the ISO principle. So starting with that music that's going to validate and acknowledge how they're feeling in the moment, and then working through music to get to a place where we feel healthier and where we feel more in control. And for the first responder population, this is a huge, huge thing that they're looking for, because unlike the regular population, unlike me, I am not faced with a lot of life or death situations where I have to turn on my fight or flight response to survive. Firefighters are. So this is a huge, huge thing that they have to cultivate, that fight or flight response. However, they have to figure out a way to turn it off. Because as we know, if your fight or flight response is turned on all the time, then your body is releasing a lot of cortisol. It's releasing a lot of adrenaline, a lot of things that are going to make us feel stressed out. And over time, these have a lot of negative effects on our internal organs because it's pumping blood away from them. So we start to see a lot of those long-term effects of stress because of that. So we talked a lot about the science and the research behind stress and why it is so important to turn off that fight or flight response, before you go home to your family, before you leave your job, so that you can have those moments of downtime too, those moments where your body can regenerate and have some rest. We, for this first 2 pilot studies, we wanted to have a lot of really good documentation and a lot of really good data to look at. So we used some self-reporting tools, and we also used 3 standardized tests, including the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale, also known as the HAM-A. And this measures the severity of physical and mental anxiety symptoms in people in their everyday lives. We also use the KIMS, or the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness Skills. And this is just an assessment of mindfulness skills. Are you using mindfulness throughout your day? Do you notice when you're tense? Do you notice when you have pain? Do you notice if you're walking too fast, or if you're not feeling well? Or does it take you up until the moment where you're sick to notice that you're not feeling well? So that is just testing how well you're mindful and aware of the moment. And then also the Mindful Attention Awareness Scale, or the MAS, which measures core characteristics of mindfulness. So those are the ones that we started out with. And these are the results of the self-report. So we talked about class day and time, the length of the classes and the length of the session, so the 6 weeks, the instructors, and the course content. We did have 2 separate instructors, myself and Hamul, and Cory Woodrow was the instructor up in Escondido, and we hope that he can make it on with us today. I'm sure all of you understand he was unable to, he just needed to see a patient right now. So he's working virtually with a patient. Hopefully he can come on in a little bit. But I want to address a little bit some of the markings on here where it says dissatisfied. So the session length was one area where they mentioned, we had some people mention that they were dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied. And so we asked after the self-report if they put dissatisfied, to tell us why. And everyone who put dissatisfied said that 6 weeks was not long enough, and that they needed more time, and that they felt like at the end of 6 weeks, they had a lot of good tools and a lot of ways to move forward, but that they they didn't trust themselves to stay on them, that they didn't trust themselves to continue doing them, that they needed some more support. So that was one of the things that we changed from feedback for our next set of classes. Also, just a couple other things that we did here with self-reporting and comfortable feeling, sharing, comfortable asking questions, these sort of things. We want them to have that comfortability, and we're real pleased with the self-reporting results from this section. And then these broke up more the exact interventions that we were doing. So you can see that first one where our group objectives met, and luckily everyone agreed that they were because we had that checklist at the beginning. Also, that checklist, very helpful for me as a music therapist to make sure that I'm staying true to the integrity of the program. And as a pilot study, very important so that when we move on from that pilot study, we can make those changes and adaptations so that things are very beneficial for people. The drumming, most people appreciated the drumming. We did have one person who did not, which is not atypical. The other things that we learned that were very important for us moving forward, for this first series of classes, we gave everyone a journal. It was actually from the Iverson Foundation, had their logo, it was very pretty. You can see there that there wasn't a lot of journal use, and then the take-home practice also didn't have a lot of things going on with it. So these are two things that were concerning to me because we want them to continue to work on these things outside of the group. And these were two of the ways that we were trying to get that to happen. So as a therapist, what do I do now to ensure that people are carrying what they learn out with them and it doesn't just end after I leave the room? We want it to be something that can work in their everyday lives. So that was something else that we looked at. These are our standardized results. So this is the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale. And you can see that this was one of the most interesting ones that we got back and something that I spent a lot of time on. The second two things here, so insomnia and intellectual anxiety, both went down and had a significant decrease for both of the groups. However, tension had a significant increase. These tests were taken at the beginning of the 6 weeks and then at the end of the 6 weeks. The tension thing was really interesting to me, and I really took a long time to think about it and why that could possibly be happening. Oh, Valerie asked another really great question. Thank you, Valerie. Interesting that breathing and mindfulness were most beneficial. Were these music-centered and facilitated? Yes. Everything that we did was facilitated with music. So mindfulness was all guided imagery through music, was deep breathing was all guided with music. Everything was live music in the room, sometimes with drums, sometimes with guitar, sometimes with happy drum, but always live and facilitated with music. Thank you, Valerie. Back to this tension. Why did tension all of a sudden skyrocket at the beginning of a 6-week course and the end of a 6-week course focused on reducing stress and anxiety? I looked at this, and it was something that, like I said, Cory and I talked a lot about. We worked with Barbara, and we talked with the fire chief, Tony Meacham, who's the fire chief of San Diego. We worked with him on this, and we found that based on all of the other results that we had, probably what we can assume from this is that, or what we can learn from this, is that tension itself may not have risen, but the awareness of tension went up. And that is a hugely beneficial thing for people. That's that whole thing idea around awareness, and am I actively aware of how I'm feeling so that I can address how I'm feeling? So this was a really big finding for us and very important for this community. The other thing that I want to point out, for those of you familiar with these tests, these assessments, the HAM-A and the KIMS and the MOS, are all quite lengthy assessments. And I am happy to admit that I made a mistake at the beginning of this pilot study by having so many tests for them to take. So we also think that the Hamilton Anxiety Scale was the last one that they took. And at this point, we had been sitting in a quiet room for about 15 minutes and it was silent, and no wonder tension went up for that one. So a couple things that we've learned from that, but some interesting findings there for sure. Oh, yeah. Just that they, oh, Judith, hi, Judith. I really agree with your finding regarding tension increasing due to increased awareness. When we talked with people afterwards, we had a lot of people who mentioned things like, I didn't realize that I was holding so much tension in my shoulders until I started paying more attention to it. So I really do think there is something there that when you're aware of the tension, yeah, your tension is going to go up. But this is definitely something that we're watching and looking at as we continue on with this program. These are the results from the Kim study. We had statistically significant increases in observation and description. Description is, can you describe how you're feeling and describe what you're going to do next, which is a huge, huge thing. So to have those statistically significant increases were really big for us. There was a slight increase in acting with awareness. So we like to see that, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that as we tweak some things and use that feedback to make things more beneficial for people. These are results from the MOS or the Mindful Attention Awareness Scale. And these are results from three of the questions. It's a very long assessment. So 3 of the questions focused most on being aware and that active awareness. So we did see a little bit of an increase in those. And what I wanted to show you here, everyone probably noticed that we had 16 people fill out the post assessment stuff for this. We had 57 participants, 61 participants. So we didn't have as many people participate in the post assessment stuff as we would have liked. And part of the reason for that is that our post assessment happened during fire season, and Escondido station, the entire station, could not take the post assessment. So that is one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit in some of the challenges that we ran into. But the interesting thing about the Mindful Attention Awareness Scale that I wanted to point out is that these were our results overall. And then these are our results if people attended 4 or more sessions. So we did have a little bit more of an increase in other areas of awareness with people who attended more than 4 sessions, which lends me to believe that if you attend more than 4 sessions, it could be more beneficial. And of course that makes sense because every session builds on itself and scaffolds up. So you get more and more comfortable with these techniques. The terminology and the experience of it becomes more and more part of a normal everyday life, and you can build on that. So it makes sense that 4 or more sessions will be more beneficial for people. So we talked about some of these considerations for data already. The schedules, literal fires and fire alarms. We did actually have one group that had to end abruptly in the middle because an alarm went off. It's part of working with this population. Scheduling the assessments were extremely difficult. The way that they have schedules for firefighters, they overlap. Some people are there for 3 days and then go home for 3 days. And so it was very difficult for us to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about how the virtual world has made that a little bit more accessible for us. So that and all of those things impacted how we were collecting data. And then the fact that our participants, some of them attended, we did have people who attended all 6. We had some that attended 4 or more. And then we had a couple that came just on that last day to fill out those assessments. So the data that we've collected for this is not anything that we would use for a study per se, but definitely was something that helped us as we continue to build this program. And hopefully will help all of you as well. I just had to share this picture. So one of the things that we did in our groups is our goal was for them to start leading the drum circles and to feel comfortable doing that. So I would be up leading the drum circle, and then towards the middle of the class, I would pull them up for small things. And then by the end, we had people leading the majority of the drum circle portion of the class, where they would be working on bringing the volume up or down, where they would stop, where they would have different people play, different people solo. So they were really getting this opportunity to be a leader in these groups in a different way than they would otherwise. It's an awesome picture, I agree. It's my favorite. All right, so after all of this, those first two groups, we were very fortunate to be able to continue our partnership with the Iverson Foundation with the hugely beneficial stamp of approval from Tony Meacham, who is the fire chief here in San Diego. So when you have the chief's backing and approval, and when he attended classes and said they benefited him, it's a very, very cool thing and has really helped us to be able to spread the word. Based on the results of our first pilot study, we decided to extend the sessions to 8 weeks and only make them 60-minute classes. The 90-minute classes were hard to navigate in their schedules. They have very busy schedules, a lot of trainings, a lot of things going on. And sorry, I failed to mention this earlier, but this was actually considered part of their station's training. So this was included in their schedules. And that's what we're hoping for more of, to address this need for awareness of mental health with first responders, that it will be part of their training before they even can be in the field. We also wanted to, we also wanted to look at accessibility. How can we make this more accessible for people, especially with the crazy schedules, and the fact that there are over 70 fire stations in California and not enough music therapists to have a different group at every single one. Even San Diego County alone has so many that Resounding Joy couldn't serve every single one. It would be impossible for us to. So how can we make this accessible to more people was something that we were looking at. And then, is the time in the day working for everybody? Our classes were held at 8:30 in the morning, again, right at that shift change, because we were trying to get 2 shifts. And for some people that worked really well for them. For some people, they said they were just ready to go home, and we can't blame them. So we were really looking at how can we make this accessible in that way. So what we decided to do was to have 2 groups, one in the morning and one in the evening. The morning one focused on energetic mindfulness and getting ready for your day, and the evening one focused on relaxation and sleep and working on that insomnia. Once we started those two, or decided to do that, we had our first group, our morning group, and then COVID-19 happened. When that happened, we luckily were able to quickly move everything online for this program and didn't have any lapse in time whatsoever. So we are holding on to the benefits and the silver linings of what is going on now. Because of COVID-19 and because of this being online, we have had people in our groups from fire stations all over California, from Pine Valley to Sacramento to way North California. So we are able to touch on that accessibility piece, which is really exciting to me. That's been kind of my mantra this whole year, has been accessibility. How can we make things more accessible for people? How can they know that we're here? And how can we get them into our groups? So having this on the internet actually has helped us in that way. We also have been able to have multiple classes for different time zones and things like that. So we are being able to reach out past California and past firefighters too, and into some of those other realms. So it's opening the door for us in this way. And I bring that up because my hope for the music therapy community is continue to be creative, continue to reach out to people. People need us, and we have got to be available and ready for them. So this was just one of those examples of how this was a huge need, and we know it was a huge need because it's been so easy to move online and have people join us. So let's talk a little bit about how we're making music now online. And please, in the chat, if you have ideas or things that you want to share, there are music therapists in here, and all of us are racking our minds right now trying to figure out how to play music live across a Zoom platform. So if you have ideas, I'm happy to listen to any of yours as well. So one of the things that we're doing in our active music making group on Tuesdays, we mute all participants for the parts where we're making music, and that takes out the background sounds. It takes out any type of like sound bouncing between computers, and then it also eliminates the issue of there being lag between my guitar and the person on the other end of the computer hearing it. So we mute all participants at the beginning for the music making. We unmute them for the verbal processing piece so that they're able to still talk with one another. We encourage the use of body body percussion. So these people, before it was all drum based, and we want it to stay drum based, it's energetic, but instead of drumming on a drum, now we're right here on our chest, and maybe we'll do this and cross our arms. And I know that when I cross my arms like this and I cross midline, it helps my hemispheres of my brain communicate better. It helps to release dopamine and serotonin and the feel-good hormones. So even just doing this and drumming is going to do that. Also, I know a passive proprioceptive tapping. Tapping to a steady beat like this is very energetic if it's something that you're doing fast-paced. It's also can be very relaxing if it's something you're doing slow. And it helps my mind to know where my body is in space. And this is a huge thing, because if my mind connects that I'm sitting here talking to you wonderful people on Zoom, then my mind realizes I'm safe. I'm safe right now. I might be nervous, but I'm safe. And the same thing with firefighters and with everyone, that we can take that moment to just realize that we're safe. And if we think back to our high school psychology class in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety is at the bottom. We don't feel safe. We can't focus on anything else or work on anything else. So how can we make them feel safe? And body percussion actually lends itself really well to this. So having them do body percussion instead of playing on a drum. We use life phrases, is what Cory and I have called them, and we make our rhythms based on those life phrases. So depending on how people are feeling, we might say, tell us what you're going to do first when this stay-at-home order lifts in California. What are you going to do first? And then we can make a phrase based off of what they're going to do. Or maybe it's, tell me one thing that's good that's happened since this pandemic. Just one thing that's good in your own personal life that we can focus on. And they make a rhythm based on that. So Cory has, and I'm sorry that he's not here. I will try to do him justice. But Cory created this type of rhythm, rhythm looping and rhythm mixing based on the West African culture of the Malinke people. And the Malinke people are an ethnic group that lives right at the borders of Mali, Guinea, and the Ivory Coast. So it's where all of those countries touch. And the Malinke people do exactly this. When they drum, everyone has a rhythm. Everyone has something that they bring to the table, and they play their one rhythm, and then someone else adds their rhythm onto it. And then someone else adds what they bring to the table onto it. And then all of a sudden, you have all these pieces of rhythm and all of these things that are different and unique, but they fit together so well, just like a drum circle. So that's what we've been doing for the drumming course. And yeah, an example of a life phrase in rhythm. Let's see. Everyone out there, tell me, let's do the one good thing. Let's stick with the positive. One good thing that has happened since all of this in your own personal life. Type it in the chat. Then once they come through, we'll create our rhythms. We'll just do one right now. Creative boom. That's a perfect one. All right, everybody. So we're going to play creative boom. Creative boom. Creative boom. So Cory would play that rhythm. And he would record it on his looping station. Oh, sorry, I hit my microphone. I don't have his looping station, or I would demonstrate that for you. But he uses the Electro Harmonix 45,000. It's a multi-track looping recorder. So he records that, and then thinking outside the box could be another one. Okay, so now we have thinking outside the box, thinking outside the box, thinking outside the box. So we have thinking outside the box happening with some people, and some people are creative boom, thinking outside the box. So you can have those two rhythms, and using the looping recorder, we can record both of those and loop them, so that at the end we have getting things done. So you can have all these different rhythms, and then Cory records them, and it creates the drum circle for them. So they get to drum along at home on their body and hear the drum circle happening. And part of honoring this culture of West Africa is that it's not just one rhythm. Djembe is multiple rhythms, and djembe actually means we come together in peace. So it all comes together with drumming, even virtually. And then we've also added in some movement and cultural dances, just some very little mindful, tiny things that make a big difference and make things really interactive. So one of the things that we've done, one of the traditional dances for the Malinke people, is just simply from my heart to the sky, from my heart to the earth, from my heart to the sky, from my heart to the earth. So just doing something like that, so the people that don't feel comfortable drumming might be able to still add in a little bit of a rhythm, doing my heart to the sky, my heart to the earth. So this is one of the things that we've been experimenting with in this class, and has been really fun and very beneficial. We share all these rhythms with the group afterwards so that they have something that they can take and drum along with. And our hope is that eventually we can start to get some of these rhythms recorded and have a really cool album in the future. So for the music relaxation class, the evening class, again, we're muting all participants. We're encouraging body percussion if instruments and that type of interaction is needed. And then we're still using rhythms based on life phrases, except we're taking them, this one's a little more introspective, a little more something that we can focus on that relaxation piece, so that I'm safe, I'm safe. I am safe, or I am calm, I am calm, I am healthy, I am healthy. So those rhythms that are more positive affirmation based, perhaps. And then looking at using guided imagery, progressive muscle relaxation, music guided breathing, all of the same things that we did in person have translated really well to the virtual format for this class. There are lots of tools that I recommend for doing visualization and things like that. One of them I'm going to type into the chat right now. It's a website called Pexels. And you can download free videos on Pexels, and they're all like beautiful nature scenes, different landscapes. And it's something that it's just a stock video, but if someone is not comfortable closing their eyes, which people who have experienced PTSD, oftentimes having them do guided imagery is not safe, because especially if I can't see them, right? If we're not standing right in front of them, it's an even bigger concern because we're not there to be able to help them with that. But when I use the videos, I know what they're looking at and I know what their mind is doing and taking them. So it's something that we've been able to help with that. Oh, thank you for sending that out. I just sent it to the panelists. I apologize. Thank you, my panelists, for sending that out to everyone. Pexels is the name of that website, and it's just free stock videos, and they're beautiful. You can use them for yourself. Take a trip to the beach today. Have a drink and take a trip to the beach. So we've been doing a lot of getting creative, right? Thinking outside the box, things that we are so good at doing as musicians anyway, and we're getting to really exercise that right brain right now. So using those visuals, and then also using visuals like PowerPoint. When I'm doing these classes in person, I don't have a PowerPoint behind me to tell them about the research behind deep breathing and what it's doing in their body. When I'm in person, I don't have a visual of a balloon that can get really big and they can breathe with the balloon and then get down for deep breathing. So these are some things, these are silver linings that we can find in these instances. And then processing through the chat feature of Zoom is something that's been happening a lot too. At first, this was something that I wasn't sure if it was going to be as beneficial, but we've actually had participants tell us that they are more comfortable sharing in chat than they are in person. So they're sharing, and they're making themselves vulnerable. And this is a huge step for some of these participants. So moving forward, where are we thinking we're headed with this program? First things first, the original program was called EMT for Wellness. And EMT stood for Effective Music Tools. When we ran that name by our first pilot groups, they were not a fan. So they helped us to change the name to Music Resiliency Training, which really is perfect because that's what we're trying to do. How can we help you be more resilient? And how can we train you and empower you to use these tools in your own life to be more resilient? So we changed our name to Music Resiliency Training. We are also looking to expand to other realms of first responders. these include lifeguards, policemen, paramedics. We also, in nurses, the other areas that we've had new people come in, dispatchers. So the people who answer the phone and take the 911 call have been participating. And then also people who work in the office of some of these places who also have a lot of stress from their work life. So this is a great thing that's happened from going virtual, that we've expanded to more groups. We also are looking to expand nationally. Right now, we've only had participants from California and a little bit on the East Coast, so we're looking to expand more nationally. And the way that we're going to do that, hopefully, is with all of you wonderful people. So we're looking for music therapists and are hoping to roll out a training for this program sometime later this year. The other thing that we're hoping to do is to do a retreat and trainings for first responders. So we want to look at the drum circle portion of this class and how the drum circle portion of this class works, and take that training to work for first responders, so that first responders can be trained on how to lead the drum circles and then lead them themselves in their station. And our thought is that we can still do the 6 or 8 week trainings at each station with first responders. And then after that, if they want to get drums and things like that, then we can definitely get the drums there. The concern that we heard from first responders that participated was that if they had drums at the station, they would never use them. So the next step would be having someone who is in charge at that station, who knows how to lead the drum circle, who can get it going, who can get people drumming. And this is another way that we can make this accessible for people. Since there are so many fire stations, there are so many first responders in our world, this is a way that they can start to, again, that empowerment, empowering them to help themselves and to help their crew and their peers. So really looking forward to those things as they are coming up. And I am ready for your questions. Oh, we have one in question answer, sorry. Okay, military. So we had a question, what about military? So this is separate from the military population. Military is considered first responders, but Resounding Joy has a robust military program specifically for military members that is separate. And Cory, the same music therapist who helps me lead the first responders program, also leads that military program. So yes, there is a lot of overlap there. This protocol would work really well with military, and is definitely something that, as we expand, something that we're looking into, how we can connect those a little more. Another thing we're looking into is how we can help the families of first responders a little more too, as we continue to expand the program, because it does seem that, based on feedback from participants and feedback from all of our groups, that this is very much affects the family as well. And I would like to go back just a little bit to talk a little bit more about Ashley Iverson and the Iverson Foundation, if I may, because she is just a dynamite of a human. So Ashley, after her husband passed away, part of the reason that she wanted to start this group is because at the same fire station, which is actually the Hamul station that I was at, that station lost Cory Iverson in the fire. And 1 month before that, it lost another member of its station who died by suicide. And so they had a really hard time at that station with all of these things. And that was really what caused Ashley to reach out and to start to look at this dynamic of how can first responders feel strong and feel like they are empowered to use these tools in their everyday lives. It's still something that we are working on. To be honest, it's hard. It's hard to convince people to focus on their mental health and emotional health and well-being, especially people who are in a culture that is a very strong culture. And I've heard the term macho be used several times, and although I'm not a huge fan of it, it is one that I've heard first responders use to refer to themselves. So how can we break through that and and look at that and get them to rethink that and be comfortable with being macho and taking a deep breath. So that's one of the things we're also, looking at, and something that anybody who does this program would run up against at some point or another, for sure. Valerie asked, do you get resistance at first? Yeah, I didn't even see your question, Valerie, when I said that. But yes, do they think it's too weird, artsy? How will this help me? Absolutely. We have had a lot of resistance. And what really has helped, having Chief Meacham, Tony Meacham, having him be such a huge advocate for the group was very helpful. Our first 2 pilot studies were hugely successful and hugely attended, partially because one was at the station where Cory passed away, and everyone knew Ashley Iverson. And when she walked in and said, do this, they were going to do it. So we had that benefit there too, which was really nice. So as far as, okay, and Colleen, thanks for speaking. Colleen said her husband is a paramedic and is listening and agrees. Resistance is huge with the EMS community. Absolutely. And it's what I have learned, and I know that I have so much more to learn about this population and about making this beneficial for them. But what I've learned so far is that you have to have buy-in from people doing it. And the only way you get that buy-in is word of mouth. So it has to be someone high up comes to the class, everyone sees that that high up person is there, and then that high up person has got to be an advocate for it. And we have been very, very fortunate to have those advocates in our community here. And San Diego is a very progressive community too for mental health and well-being, and we're very fortunate to have that as well. So to have that support for grants and different things, because all of these programs also are free to everyone who attends them. They're all paid for by grants. A little more about the resistance piece. We've had people come in and after the group say things like, oh, I thought this was going to be a bunch of hippies with guitars on the beach and different things. But the one thing that separates me from the hippies on the beach, because I would love to be playing guitar on the beach right now, is that I am armed with research. Every single class that I do, I tell them everything that's happening in their brain and their body. I tell them why we're doing this. And I think that is so important for that empowerment piece, because this isn't just me walking in telling them to breathe. This is me walking in and saying, if you take a deep breath, and you take 6 deep breaths actually, then that is your body's way of taking you back to homeostasis. That will elicit the relaxation response in your body. And when that is hit, these are all the hormones and all the things and everything that's happening. And so that is just a huge, huge thing to be able to tell them all of this research and report that research. The other thing that I recommend, and this is something that I've had to work through too, when you walk into a population like this, there are lots of assumptions. So when I walked into my first group, I assumed that I would be viewed as a little bit of a hippie. I assumed that there would be some pushback. And with this population, I specifically the firefighters I have worked with, owning that and saying, yeah, I'm sure you feel that way. I'm going to try to prove you wrong today. And being super confident in what I'm doing, because I know that that research is accurate. I know that the music is beneficial. I know all the research to back it up. So I walk in there confident about it, instead of walking in a little bit shy about it. I walk in confident, and then also being able to roll with the punches. the verbal punches. When someone says a joke or says that something's not working for them and is maybe a little bit blunt about it in front of the whole group, being able just to acknowledge that and to talk about it and to not take it personally, but to take it as this is an example or an opportunity for everyone to learn and to get out of that comfort zone a little bit more. So that's been some of the things that have been successful for me with the resistance. And as we finish those first 2 pilot groups, we've had less resistance because word of mouth is starting to travel. And we hope that that will continue. And wouldn't it be cool if there was someday a national thing and it was just recognized everywhere? as I said earlier, our hope is that we're working with the actual training facility in California for California firefighters to put this training as part of every new firefighter's training. And that may be a couple of years away still, but our hope is that that is part of the training, so that it's just as important as learning how to use your oxygen mask. It's just as important as learning how to use the hose and all the equipment. And that it is built into the system so that they know right off the bat that their mental health and well-being is important and that they have value and worth, not just as a first responder, but as a human. And so we're looking at those pieces too. Hopefully that will be something that can really help with that resistance in the future. Are there any other questions? How is the training, great question, Valerie. How is the training translated back into their work? Are they more focused? That's a great question. We have not reached out to the people who have participated in this in the past, and that would be a great thing to do right now, to see if this did affect their work. I do know that we had in our first pilot group, there were 4 people that got promoted a month afterwards. They had early promotions. I tried not to read too much into that, but I was pretty excited. So I would think that it would help with that. I do know that we've been following burnout, and they haven't had any firefighters from those 2 first groups leave their jobs, which is also a huge issue with first responders, that idea of burnout, because it is just so much all the time and so hard to turn off. So it would be great to reach back out to them and see if they feel more focused in their jobs. So thank you for that recommendation, Valerie. Any other questions? Okay, any ideas or thoughts about EMS Family? Yes. When we had our participants fill out the self-reporting at the end of the 6 weeks, and had them do quotes and testimonials, almost every single quote was about their family and about how they didn't realize how much the stress they were bringing home from work was affecting their family. And so that was kind of something that I learned too, and something I encourage all of us to be super humble in our work, so that we are open to learning and growing these things. And for me, this is where I see this program going to, is more into the home and more into the family. And looking at just Ashley Iverson specifically, she has a daughter and was pregnant with their second daughter when Cory passed away. So how can we reach out to those families too, who are experiencing some of these horrific, tragic things? And it is a huge piece. It is a huge piece to look at the family members and how that happens. We had a lot of people who said that they were taking these exercises home and starting to do them with their kids and with their wives and or spouses. And so that was really cool to hear too, that they were, again, empowered to then share these things with their families. They felt that it helped them so much that they wanted to share it with their loved ones. That's huge. So yes, as the program grows and as we get more of a sturdy standing on how it's going to grow, that is definitely something that I am looking at. Some more questions here. Have you thought about developing a program for individual sessions? Yes. So when we had to go virtual, that was one of the things we did. We opened it up to individual sessions, and we do have some people taking adapted music lessons right now virtually through this program as well. So yes, doing some individual sessions, and hopefully those individual sessions will make them more comfortable with opening up in the group session. Also, is there any interest coming from the participant? Oh yeah, individuals, yes. And then, have you ever had someone process something that should be addressed individually or maybe beyond your scope of knowledge or practice? Great question. We have not had that happen in the group. However, we did have one participant who filled out the assessment at the end, and at the end of his assessment did leave us a note that was a little concerning, and that was something that we had to address with him in person afterwards. That's been the only thing. As far as sharing in the group, most people were sharing things that it was like these technique, this works for me, or if I'm feeling like I'm having a really rough day, I listen to this song. So most of it was sharing, as in providing resources for other people, what works for them. And we had very minimal sharing of, this is how I feel type thing. That's something that we're still kind of working on, and has happened more. The sharing of emotions has happened more virtually than it did in person, which is one of those silver linings that we might be able to help people who are uncomfortable with processing verbally. We can help them through the chat on Zoom. Yes, let's see if we have, I think I got all of, I definitely want to learn more about being able to offer something. Yes, offer something here in your area. Yes. So this is our call to action for everybody in the music therapy community, because this is a population that really, really needs our support, and especially during this pandemic. Our first responders are working just as hard as ever. And this goes for our doctors and nurses too, that this is a way that we can reach out and provide something for them that can help them in their daily lives, and hopefully build up some coping skills so that we build up to that resiliency. And the virtual aspect of it, to be honest, I was not thrilled with anything going virtual at first, and it was something that really concerned me. But as I look back on it now, I'm seeing a lot of benefits in the virtual realm, with the accessibility piece, with the processing piece. So in your communities now, I highly encourage you to reach out to your fire stations and your police stations, see what you can do, and ask them, how can we support you through music therapy? I'm a music therapist. How can I support you? As opposed to, how can we work together? Maybe try that support way of rephrasing it, and see what comes out of it. And I just saw that we're right at time. I want to thank all of you so much for being here. And my email is there, and so is Cory's. If you have any questions about the looping portion of that, please email Cory. He is so happy to help you and wanted to be here so badly. But any questions about the actual program itself can come to me, and I'm happy to help you. Thank you all. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for all the work you're doing.
Lindsay, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this awesome information with us and all of your experiences. Yeah, thank you to everybody that came and attended today. We're so excited that we've had such awesome attendance for this conference. We'll be wrapping up our conference tomorrow already. But in the meantime, we do have one more wellness session, which Lindsay, I think you're involved in as well. That's in 4 o'clock Pacific, so that's in 2 hours, for parents, a panel discussion for parents, correct?
Yeah, parent music therapists. Grab a drink if you'd like and join me for and 3 other music therapy parents as we talk about being a parent in this crazy world, and also in this crazy field, and how we can support each other. And then definitely tune in for Kamika King's talk on Saturday about finding your authentic self through music. It's going to be incredible. Hope to see you there.
Yes. All right. So thank you all so much.
Have a great day, everybody.
Good day. Bye, everybody.